I like to think anybody, has something they've always dreamed about doing. Like, even if you took a 20-year hiatus towards that dream, go ahead and start pursuing it again. As long as you're here, you can do it.
You are listening to the Midlife with Courage podcast. Each week, women like you come for inspiration, motivation, and sometimes a little education to help them flourish after 40. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Midlife with Courage. I am Kim Benoit, your host, and I'm so happy to have you all here. I'm also very happy to have my guest with me today. Her name is Victoria Hamel. Welcome to the podcast, Victoria.
Thanks, Kim. I'm really happy to be here.
You are an author and a blogger, and we're going to talk about that. But why don't you just kind of tell us a little bit more? Tell us where in the world you are and maybe a little bit more about what you do.
Sure. Okay. I live in the suburbs of Chicago with my husband, and then we have three college age or just out of college children. Some are at home and some are away. And during the day, I work as a paraprofessional at my local school district. So during the day, I chase small children around.
Oh, fun.
And yeah, and then in my spare time, quote unquote, what I do is I like to write steamy small town romance books.
Yeah, and I have read one of them, one so far. I'm sure I'll
Oh,
read more. Yeah. Um,
awesome. Thank you.
yeah, we'll talk about that. So tell us about a time in your life when you felt courage or you were courageous.
That's a really good question. Just things like speaking in public can be a place to show courage. And the easiest one for me to grab onto, and I had breast cancer. And so a lot of times when you have a cancer diagnosis of any type, everybody is telling you how brave you are. And for a lot of people, myself included, you kind of feel like, am I brave? It's not like I chose this. I'm just dealing with the cards dealt to me.
Mhm.
And so when I looked up different words, courage really resonated me because courage is about like being afraid and then finding the strength to be afraid and do something anyway. So I like to think that when it comes to, just cancer treatments and living through it, that is a place where courage really helped me. Because if you're saying, I recognize it's okay to be afraid, but I'm going to go ahead and do this thing anyway, I think that helps you to not like feel like you have to be something bigger than you are.
Definitely. Yeah. How long ago was your cancer diagnosis and treatment?
2019, so lucky me, and I say that with sarcasm, I finished right before the pandemic started. I think this will probably resonate with many of the people who listen to the podcast, is that right after I finished treatment, the pandemic hit. So all my plans to have a great and wonderful 50th year of celebrations was down the drain.
Oh no. Oh no. Yeah, that year took those years, I should say, took a lot from a lot of people, but
Right.
that's a big bummer. So let's go back a little bit. I noticed and I did some research. I wasn't stalking you, I was researching you. And
Awesome.
it it sounds like you have always been writing, like as a child even. You said I read that you wrote stories for your friends.
Yes, I even when I was, grade school, I wanted to write. And one year I dressed up like a reporter for Halloween. And then when I was in high school, I would write like these little naughty little stories for my friends where they would meet their celebrity crush and their celebrity crush would fall in love with them. So like I would pass them a notebook, they'd read the story, and they'd say, "Oh, tell me more." And they'd give it back to me and I'd write more. So this was way back in the day. And then, then I got married and had kids, and writing really went to the wayside for a
Sure.
super long time.
Hmm.
And then you hit your 40s and then you start thinking about, what have I done? What would I like to do? And put the focus back on yourself, I think. And so in my late 40s, I started to try and write mystery books.
Hmm.
And then I got diagnosed with cancer. And then I didn't write, but I read and read and read. And when I came out of that, I thought, I want to write happy endings. And so I thought about how way back when I was in high school, I used to write these little stories for my little friends. And that's when I decided to write romance. So it was kind of a long, twisty journey with big breaks in between.
Yeah.
And I like to think anybody, has something they've always dreamed about doing. Like, even if you took a 20-year hiatus towards that dream, go ahead and start pursuing it again. As long as you're here, you can do it.
I love that. So many times I've talked to women who, if you've had that thing for you, it was writing, it doesn't go away no
No,
matter what you're doing. I love that. You work in a school now. Is that what you were doing before as well? I mean,
that's
have you
another
always?
great That's a great question. I never worked in a school. I never thought I would work in a school. But then after the pandemic, and after having cancer and going through all that, I was looking for, my thought process was I wanted a job that was less intensive than working as a secretary in an office. And in my brain, I thought working at a school would be less intensive.
Oh my goodness.
Jokes on me, right?
I'm
But
laughing. I'm sorry, but I'm laughing.
but I love it. I work with special education pre-K kids. So every day is different, and it's like when I'm at work. I don't check my phone. It's complete immersion and focus. And I think that's really good for me personally to keep any anxiety about everything away because I'm working in a school. I'm focused on the children. I'm not worried about social media. I'm not worried about any doctor's appointments because I have like anxiety around everything medical now, as can
Hmm.
be understood.
Sure.
So it really is a nice way to focus and really get those steps in. Like, I don't think now I could ever work in an office again because I just can't sit that much. I'm used to
Uh,
running around and I love it.
I'm very bad at not moving. I need to be better at moving my body. But what I find is when I do start to move and kind of keep doing it, my body's like, yep, keep going, keep going, keep going. We want that. So maybe that's kind of the same for you.
Yes, for sure. One thing that so in when I have time, I run. And in the past, I have run marathons before.
Mm.
And so sometimes people ask me, like, how do you do it? Like, if once they get past why do you do it, which is like, I guess I'm crazy, but like, how do you do it? And then sometimes people say, I always wanted to run because that's like a bucket list thing a lot of people have too. I always wanted to run a marathon or some race.
Sure.
How, like, how do you get started? And I always say what I do, and I still do it to this day, is like if I don't feel like running or I don't feel like exercising, my tip and trick is to tell yourself, I'm just going to do 10 minutes. I can do 10-minute walk, or I can do a 10-minute run, or I can do a 10-minute workout. And after 10 minutes, I can stop because, at least for me, and I think a lot of other people, once you get to 10 minutes, you're like, this isn't so bad. I could do another 10. That's how you do
Sure.
everything that you don't want to do. You just say, I'll do it for 10 minutes,
Yeah, I can do anything for 10 minutes.
right?
Yeah, break it down into those little steps. You're talking about when you're at your job, you are at your job. I love that is so important because I don't know about you, but as I've gotten older and wiser, I have like this ADHD kind of thing happening where something distracts me and I want to go that way and then something else comes along and squirrel and all that stuff. So,
100%. Yeah.
and I would bet that the kids that you are working with kind of help along those ways to kind of keep you focused in what you're doing at work.
100%. Yeah. You have to stay on your toes, pay
Yeah,
attention.
for sure. So, how do you, to me, I love to write too. I'm not an author yet. To me, writing helps me process things. There's journaling, and if something is really bugging me and I can't figure it out, I'll just start writing. How does writing help you, or does it help you?
Sure. I try, and I fail often, but I try to start every day with just a little like writing down of, okay, here's what's going on today. Here's what I'm trying to accomplish in the morning, just like really quick to make sure I have like things organized.
Mhm.
And then for the creative writing, I do the same thing with when I'm drafting a book, like I'm drafting a book now, I bargain with myself. Okay, I'm just going to write 300 words, and then I can take a break and I can write 300 more. And one thing that I do is that works for me, and it probably plays into a little bit of ADHD, is that I write the story in sequence. I have an outline and I write it in the sequence that it happens in the book. But what I'll do is right now I have 3 chapters and I'm working in all 3 chapters. So if I like do a paragraph in one chapter, then I'm like a little stuck. Then I'll switch to another chapter and write a little bit in that. So it's not completely all over the place, but it
Sure.
does help me to get the words in every day.
Oh, interesting. Because I would have assumed that, and you never assume, but when you write a book, you go first chapter, second chapter, third chapter, like finish one before you go to the next, but you don't do it like that.
No. And one thing I like to do too is when at some point when I've got about half the book written, I'll go write the epilogue and just like do the
Oh,
whole epilogue story and then go back into the regular book. I don't know. It works for me. You can
yeah.
do anything. If you want to write a book, I think there's an author, John Irving. He's
Mhm.
written a ton of books and he like always starts with the end
Oh, interesting.
and then like goes to the front. Yeah. So
Because then you kind of know where it's heading, where the story's heading.
exactly. And you can put in little seeds
Oh,
that turn into
sure.
the story at the end because you know the end.
Sure.
But some people, they just sit down and they just start writing and see where it goes.
Yeah. Wow, interesting. All different ways to go about it. So if there are listeners out there who are thinking, gosh, you know what, I've always wanted to write a book, how would they start? What would you suggest they do? Hi, everyone. Kim here. I just wanted to remind you that I have a brand new product on my online shop at midlifewithcourage.com. They are beautiful affirmation cards just for you. These are a product that I created. I'm very proud of them. They're called your Daily Dose of Courage. Each day you take a card and you can go in order. They are numbered 1 through 31 for each day of the month, or you can just take them out at random. Use them just to give yourself a little positive message. Maybe you want to use them as a journaling prompt. You can even use them in the evenings before you go to bed as a way of just having a little positive, courageous message to read before you go to sleep at night. So go to midlifewithcourage.com and go on the online shop. The link is right there on the first page and grab your copy of your Daily Dose of Courage affirmation cards.
I would say that to start, they should think about like what they want to write about. Like, what's the story going to be? And just sit down, but don't judge themselves, but just start, typing or writing what that story would be so
Mhm.
that they're starting to think about where it's going to go.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then I think it's important to, if you're going to start writing and your end goal is to publish a book, you don't have to figure out everything in a day. You don't have to decide, am I going to try and find a publisher to publish this? Am I going to try and publish this on my own? And they might want to look at, if they're on social media, following people who write the type of books that they want to write and following people who talk about writing, maybe listen to some writing podcasts to just start to learn a little bit about how the whole thing might work. And then they can pick and choose what works for them. But what they definitely don't want to do is if they post on a social media that they are working on writing a book, and then they get messages from people saying, hi, I'm a book coach and I would like to help you. They should definitely not spend any money. Don't
Okay.
take up any of those.
There's always somebody out there who wants to make a buck off of what you want to do, isn't there?
Right, right,
Yeah.
which is fine.
Yeah,
And there's lots of good options out there.
sure.
But I would say figure out what you're doing, how you're going to do it, start writing, and then pursue, buy some books about writing.
Right, right. We're not putting down coaches at all. We're just saying be careful, the ones that are reaching out to you like that,
Right. Yeah,
especially
it's
on social media. Oh my goodness.
exactly. And it's nobody you know or anything.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So when you start writing, I know a lot of us deal with who's going to want to read this. Nobody's going to be interested in what I have to say. Have you ever dealt with that?
Oh, yes, all the time. Yeah, every time I write, when I start writing a book, I'm writing it and I'm thinking, this is absolute hot garbage. Like, this is terrible, terrible. And then I ignore that and I keep writing. And when it's finally finished, which is just a rough draft, so it just means the story has a beginning and end, and each scene is in it. Then I go back and I revise it. And when I revise it, I honestly sometimes, and I think that this is probably like menopausal brain and stuff like that, and maybe ADHD and other neurodivergent brain thinking, I'll go, oh my gosh, I honestly don't remember that sentence. That sentence is actually good. I can't believe I wrote that.
I get
So,
it. I get it.
so then I revise it and then I send it to an editor and then I get feedback.
Mhm.
But I always say, like, to myself all the time, it sounds like counterintuitive, but I say, for each book I finish, I say, well, I like it. It's written how and includes things that were important to me. And I told the story the way I wanted to tell the story. And if people, if it just doesn't match what people want to read, I don't care because I'm not doing this to become like a famous author. I'm doing it because I have stories I want to tell. And I think there's some people in the world that will enjoy them. So as long as there's some people that enjoy it somewhere in the world, then I'm good. I did what I wanted to accomplish. So I tell myself I don't have to write in order to get myself to keep writing.
Oh, good. That's a great outlook. Don't write for what you're going to get from it, just what you're going to give others.
Right, right. And things are always changing in books, what's popular. And so I don't write to what's popular.
Mm,
I write to what like I want to read and what I look for as a reader,
hmm hmm
and then just hope my people find me.
Yeah. Yeah. So what you do right, what I've read is a little steamy.
Right.
Yeah, and you said it's small town romance and a little steamy, and I enjoy it. I think it's awesome. I noticed the one I'm reading, I'm almost done with it. I was trying to finish it before we talked, but
Mm,
it's the Gouda one.
okay.
Tell us the title of that because I'm going to mess it up. I won't say it correct.
Sure. It's called No Gouda Without You.
I noticed in that book, of course, the main character had breast cancer. And so that's kind of put into the story. Is that based on you kind of what you went through, or is it just kind of how does that process work? Are you kind of including things that happened to you into your books?
Sure. That's a great question. Yeah. So when I wanted to write, when I had like my first main idea, I wanted to write a romance story where the character had had breast cancer and then she found a happily ever after. And it needed to be like she had cancer before the book, because the
Mhm.
book wasn't going to be about cancer treatments,
Sure.
because I wanted to write something that people who had survived breast cancer could like pretty much relax and read and not be too stressed out. And if you have a book with a lot, she finds out she has cancer, then she goes through cancer treatments. That's not very relaxing for somebody going through it. They're trying to kind of get away from it.
Sure.
So, what was important to me was to center a person who had had cancer. And then it was also important to me to write a book where the main character would not be able to have children. So in this book, she's unable to have children because she had breast cancer and then she has BRCA1 mutation. So
Mhm.
then she has her ovaries and her tubes and everything removed. So because most romance books, many, many, many romance books, it goes woman meets boy, they fall in love, something happens, but it all works out in the end, epilogue baby. And
Yeah.
I thought, and I have kids, and I thought, and I've read tons of books where that happens. I don't
Mhm.
mind it, but
Yeah.
I thought I want to do something where that's not the happily ever after. They're
Mm.
not going to have kids, and that's okay because
Yeah.
that's what I like to see. And so how it relates to me is I'm a breast cancer survivor. I had chemo and radiation. The character had chemo and radiation.
Mhm.
She had a different surgery. I had a different surgery. And then I have a BRCA2 mutation, but she has a BRCA1 mutation because the imaginary character, which is not me, but just has some things that I've been through, so I understand where she's coming from, is younger. So I gave her a mutation where it's more likely that you would get cancer a little bit younger.
Mm. Mhm.
And then she works at a school as a secretary. I work at a school and I was a
Oh, yeah.
secretary in the past. So that was easy for me to do. So a
Okay.
lot of things that I do in my books relate to me in that it was a job I had in the past, or I know somebody that has that job. I just take like little bits and pieces from
Yeah.
real life, and then I mix it with things I think would be really fun. Like the town has a lot of festivals and things.
Yeah, I noticed
And
that.
in a future book, there's a haunted hayride, and there's a
Ah.
one of the other books has where they go to the high school for a football game. So I take all the
Hmm.
things that I think would be really fun to like go to in real life and how you would love to have friends relate to you and relate to your friends and put that in the books.
Yeah. It's that's so interesting about the baby part because I was in my mind as I was reading, I thought, oh, she's going to get pregnant somehow until I figured out it's not physically possible. But you're right. A lot of books end with, oh, we're going to have a baby. But I love that you put that part in there that it's okay that they're not. Some people just don't, and that's fine. But
Right.
yeah, and just how you take those little pieces of your life and put them into the book. And so talk to us about this. Is it 5 book series?
I'm working on the fifth book now, yes.
Okay. Okay.
So there's 4 books, and they all take place in an imaginary suburb of Chicago called Marley Creek.
Okay.
So I try to put those little Midwestern touches in there. So if you
Yeah.
live in the Midwest or you've wanted to travel to the Midwest, you can get like a little flavor of small town life in when you live in an area that you can also go to the big city. So I
Right.
like to have that option in the books, but they don't really go to the big city too much. And the first book is about Nicole, the breast cancer survivor. So in romance books, a lot of times there's like certain tropes, and one of them is grumpy sunshine. And usually the man is grumpy and the woman is sunshine. But in this book,
Oh.
Nicole is grumpy. She
Mhm.
has some hangups because she's been through a lot and she's only like 36, I think, in the book.
Uh-huh.
And then she meets Sean, who's a chef, and he's sunny. So
Mhm.
that's why no Gouda without you. He's a chef. There's food. There's
Yeah.
talk of Gouda in the book.
Yeah.
So one thing that's always important to me in my books is if I give it a title, when you read the book, you'll be like, oh, I see. That's why the title's there. Like it connects.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a real bummer if a book has a title and then you read the book and you're like, this title never came up, like it didn't come up in the book, anything about it.
Yeah. What does that mean? I don't know. I don't
Right.
understand. Yeah.
Right. And then in the next book, it features the best friends of the first couple in the book. So you don't have to
Okay.
read the books in order. They each
Yeah.
have different couples
Sure.
and they're all in the town. And then people will show up in the other books. For example, in the fourth book, It Happened One Night, the main character goes to a girls' night out
Mhm.
And she went to high school with Nicole from the first book. So you
Oh,
get to
okay.
see what's going on with Nicole and what's going on with the Zaina from the second book at that point. So they take place in basically they take place in the now. So like the book I'm writing right now is taking place in spring of March 2025, but I try not to put the actual years in the books.
Ah, uh-huh.
So I'm not super tied to it, but basically they started when I started writing them. And
Okay.
so they take place now because I am like a mood reader and a mood writer. So it's easier for me to write the season I'm in. And I love the seasons.
Oh, okay. So literally the seasons, like spring, fall. That's what you mean
Right.
by mood writer.
Yeah. So it No Gouda Without You takes place in like October, and I wrote it in like October.
And okay. Okay. So interesting. It's almost like they're not like your autobiography, but they're parts of your life. I think that's so cool how you do that.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about the raciness, the steamy part.
Okay.
How do you just like, what was your thought? I'm going to put this into the book. And it talks about getting together physically and different things. So why did you decide to do that versus not?
Sure. So when I started to write No Gouda Without You, my plan was not to do that. My plan was to like keep the door closed. That they call it open door, closed door. It's
Hmm.
like when you read my book, when the main characters first get together, when they have their first intimate moment, I was going to have the door closed. But when I started writing it, the door opened. So I just wrote that. And as I wrote the book, I thought, me personally, I like when I read to be able to see that moment because it's intimate, of course, but it's also vulnerable.
Hmm.
They're both being very, very vulnerable. You're literally showing yourself to another person.
Hmm.
And I like to show that part of their journey.
Hmm.
But I don't like, I get bored quickly if there's a lot because some books have a lot and some
Yeah.
books have none. And I read the gamut. So for me, I like to put in that very first time that they get together and then one other time so you can see how their love and their relationship is progressing. And then I put in one last one at the end so you can see like, it's like tie a bow on it, the
Hmm.
culmination,
Yeah.
the I love yous are happening. And so that's why I do it. So you
Yeah.
can see the vulnerability and growth of their relationship.
Sure.
But
And I
I know
love,
it's not for everyone,
yeah.
including like my mother.
Yeah. Does your mom read your books?
I don't think she's finished one. I told her she could just skip the part, just skip it. Just go to the next chapter and keep
Yeah.
reading.
Yeah.
So she did read some of it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. I read a book not too long ago that had a lot in it and a lot of raciness and steaminess. And the author, before the book started in the foreword, she's, if you are related to me, please don't read this book because there was so much in it. I love the part, like I said, I'm almost done with it, but since she did have breast cancer and she had a lumpectomy and, she wasn't equal on both sides, that was a very poignant part of the book because, I mean, us as women of a certain age, when things are changing, our bodies don't look like they used to look, you can kind of relate to that, like taking your shirt off and things don't look like they used to. And I thought that was a really vulnerable part for her and for the reader too, probably.
Thank you. That's what I'm going for. Yes.
I love to read, and anyone who even likes to read should read your books. Tell us a little bit about where we can find them. And
Sure.
I know you also have a blog as well. I was looking through that today too.
Right. So you can go to my website if it's easiest for you, victoriahamelauthor.com. And then on there you can click through, or you can just go to Amazon and put Victoria Hamel books and they'll come up. Or if you like Google the name of the book, it will come up and it'll have various options if you prefer not to Amazon.
Mhm.
and you would like to get physical copies, you can order them through or if you have a local bookstore and you're like, this book sounds good, I would like to get a copy of No Gouda Without You, then you can just go to your local bookstore and they can order it for you. So you
Yes.
can support local bookstores or you can do Amazon. Amazon, you can get the ebook. If you have a Kindle Unlimited subscription, then it's part of your subscription to all my books. You can read them for free with your subscription. And then, last but definitely not least, and super important, if you love your local library, you can ask your library to order a copy of the book, and then you can
Uh-huh.
borrow it from your library as well.
I did not realize, I probably should have realized that you could do that because,
Yes.
yeah, I have rediscovered the library this last year and have been borrowing books, like classic books that I never read or I wanted to reread again. But, oh, okay, that's a great tip. Um,
Libraries are great. And then it's
yeah.
such an easy way to try different books because then if it doesn't work out, if it's not a fit for you, if you read like a chapter and you're like, I'm just not feeling it, just return it to the
Yeah,
library.
no harm done. No
Right.
money lost. And then if there's a book that you really do like and you want to get your own copy, then you know that, yeah, I'm gonna go buy my own copy too. So wonderful. And I know when I've talked to other authors that they love to have reviews of their
Oh,
books.
yes. If you like my books, if you could please review it on Amazon or Goodreads. Reviews are very helpful for us because Amazon's got this algorithm, and if you have X amount of reviews, then they show your books to more people. I do a fair amount of in-person events where I sell my books and I get to talk to people directly,
Hmm.
and that doesn't translate to reviews on Amazon, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's a bummer. So you're in the Chicago area. Do you have anything coming up? Now this is probably going to air in April, May. So just for reference.
Okay, sure. So one of the things I do is I'm the secretary of the organization Chicago North Romance Writers. And it's only $35 a year to join. Quick plug for them. We have members all over the country and we do meetings, but we also have an event coming up in July. It's called Books in Bloom. So if you Google Chicago Books in Bloom, you can see that event. If you're a reader, you can come to the free author signing, which is going to have a ton of different authors all through romance and fantasy and things like that.
Okay.
It's July 11th and 12th. And then if you want to attend the whole event, there's something kind of fun. There's tea where they take book covers at tea and fashion show and people dress up like the book covers, but in like it's just like it's not like actual book covers. They're dressed in beautiful dresses that match the
Oh,
covers. So
okay.
that's really fun. So that's coming up in July.
Oh, fun. That is, yeah. So listeners, if you're in the Chicago area, go check that out. So you mentioned you're working on your fifth book right now. What else is in the future for you, do you think?
I do someday want to write a cozy mystery series. I just need like to figure out the characters and the mystery and what I do like in my spare time. If you've ever wanted to write mystery books and you see wackadoodle headlines about true crime, save those headlines and then someday when you're ready to write your book, you can take that story and help turn it into your
Oh,
mystery.
oh,
Like
good tip.
and the nice thing is there's like so many books you don't really have to worry like if somebody wrote a book with the same kind of killing method because there's so many different books that you're going to be fine. Just write what you want to write. Like
Yeah.
there's one that's really piqued my attention and it is somebody poisoned somebody else with their protein drink.
Oh
You
no.
think, isn't that like a good idea? Because
Oh my
sometimes those
gosh.
shakes don't taste so great, if you don't get a good one. So maybe you
Yeah.
wouldn't notice.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that. Let me know when you write that one.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Yeah. So, Victoria, before we say goodbye, is there any one last little nugget of information or advice you want to give our listeners?
Overall, I think just if you want to do something, just if you have some kind of goal, you want to run, you want, something on that bucket list you always wanted to do. I'm telling you, this is when you need to start doing it, and just set a timer and spend 10, 15, 20 minutes towards that goal, starting right after you listen to this podcast. That's my call to action.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, listeners, something's in your heart, something's in your mind. Start doing it. 10 minutes. That's all it takes. And then see what happens after that.
Right.
Love it. Love it so much. Well, Victoria, thank you so much for joining me today. I love this conversation and I love the book I'm already reading, and I'm sure I will love the rest of the series. So I hope you keep writing and keep sharing your talents with the world.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. You've been listening to the Midlife with Courage podcast. If you liked what you heard, I would love it if you would leave me a review. Or even better, send a link of this episode to a friend. If you want to get a sneak listen to this podcast, go to my website, midlifewithcourage.com, and subscribe to the website. It's free, and every Monday morning you are going to get an inspirational email along with a link to that week's episode a day before everyone else. Until next time, take care of your beautiful self.